Hey, everybody. For those listening, thank you for listening. For those watching, there is going to be no production value to this episode whatsoever. I'm not even going to worry about the green screen moving around. Same with audio. I'm not going to add any fancy production because I just wanted to get this information out there now that I finally can. You may or may not have noticed that my content really slowed down over the last few months. I went from posting at minimum twice a week to posting, if anything, old recycled content from stuff like Skeptic University, old episodes, throwbacks, things like that. And then I just eventually had to stop posting entirely, with the exception of like a couple little shorts that I was able to post on YouTube here and there that were from old episodes. And I wanted to explain why, because it's over now. Thank God. I mean, you feel me. And it's been an insane, crazy ride. And I feel like you deserve an explanation for where things have been, where I've been, where the content's been, and when it's coming back. So here we go. January 11th, I was hit by a driver under the influence. I think drugs. I don't think he was drunk. I think he was high out of his mind. I had somebody on the phone with me in the immediate aftermath, just to make sure that there was a witness somewhere. And the first words out of his mouth were, "Is that man slurring his words?" He he hit me on an overpass, and so initially, we pulled over to check on ourselves, and he was in a big, gigantic white work van. He hit me so hard that I legitimately thought something was going to be wrong with my body when I got out of the car, because that's how hard he hit me. But I wasn't. I was fine. Medically, I was okay. My car was just smashed in the back, just unoperable. Um, and again, he was driving a big giant work van. The man, from what I saw in my rearview mirror, I do not believe he hit his brakes at all. I think he was distracted. His car was so big, his van was so big, that I didn't see if he was texting and driving or looking out the window. I'm not sure because it was so tall. But he did not brake. He did not slow down. He just smashed into me. And when I got out to get his basic information before we agreed to move on to a safer spot to wait for the cops and things like that, he tried to offer me his credit card to pay for the damage, and I said no, because I had just not judging a book by its cover, but based on the state of the van and the dude driving it, I just had a feeling that credit card was not only going to bounce back, but also I would have gone to jail for using his credit card somewhere to make a purchase. Is very strange. And then when I made it clear that no, I want to go about this the right way, he told me that he was going to kill himself. He was going to end his life if I got his insurance involved and if I got the police involved. Wild shit. He explained to me that his insurance was already so high that it was going to ruin his life if anything else was added to his insurance payments, and he simply couldn't afford it, and he would be homeless and this and that and the other, and he might as well just end it all right now because he had nothing left to live for. I don't know why, but I looked at him and I said, "Sir, if you are paying $500 a month in insurance like you say you are, then why the hell would you kill yourself the moment you need it to do its job? What's the point? Why would you even pay for it if that's the case?" And he did agree that that was a good point. He was like, "Oh, you know what? Good point." Maybe I overreacted. And later he did apologize to me for overreacting. But I got in the car and I locked the door because this sounded unhinged. And it was. For the next 4 hours after we found a safer spot to pull over, I had to drag my car. I literally had to drag my car. You could hear the metal and the plastic just scraping the ground. You could hear things and feel things scraping my tire, like metal scraping and stabbing. We finally pulled over not far away, but off the ramp. And I again locked myself in my car, and I would only talk to him through like a little slit in my window about this high. And he was acting erratic. He would go back and forth from really nice and friendly and apologetic to just livid, just angry. And in my opinion, desperate people are a lot scarier than mad people. And the desperation in this guy's body language from head to toe was just palpable. He was desperate. I don't know what for. I did not know what was going on in his life, but he was so desperate to get out of there right then, and to get away and to get out of this and to not be seen and to not be found out, that I truly was not sure if this man was going to pull a gun. We're in Tennessee. I didn't know if he was going to pull a gun on me. I had no idea. He would have these long moments where he would glare at the back of my car, just glaring, unblinking. And then he would like shake his head and go to grab something out of his car. And every time he did that, I thought, oh, this is it. This is when he brings the gun out. This is when it happens. I called the Nashville police. multiple times. I called 311 and 911. I let them know that he was acting erratically and that I felt unsafe. I let them know exactly what was happening. Nobody ever came. We waited for almost 4 hours. Nobody ever came. And this entire 4 hours, he's telling me he's going to end his life. He's pretending to call his insurance company when I can tell that his phone isn't on. He tells me that his insurance company told him not to get the police involved because they had it from there. They were going to handle it from there. And then when I declined and I said, no, I still want to talk to your insurance company, that's when he really called them. And they would later tell me that that's the worst advice. And they would never say to do that, to file a police report. And it was very scary. It was really, really scary. And we were parked on such a crazy part of the highway that I didn't feel like I could get anybody else to come help me. I didn't, there was not enough room for me to feel like I could call somebody to meet us out there and be protected. And I didn't know it was going to take over 4 hours for the cops. They never came. So it actually technically took longer than that. But I didn't know that at the time, right? And so, Zilla, come on. And so it was a nightmare. But eventually, when it got pitch black and we were the only ones out there on the road by ourselves, it went from being this insane, crazy rush hour traffic to silent. I decided it was better for everybody involved if I just filed the police report the next day and stopped waiting because it was going to take forever. Every time I would call 911 or 311, they would tell me they had no estimate for how long it would take the cops to get out there. Sorry if you can hear the wind whipping. We've been on a tornado watch for like 2 days now. That's what that is. So the cops also gave me an attitude the next day whenever I called to file a police report, which I never got to let them know that he was high on drugs or potentially on alcohol because you can't do that. If you file the report the next day, they won't allow you to include any details about intoxication because there's nobody to prove it, which is why I waited for 3 hours. People always ask me, they're like, why'd you wait for 3 hours? Why'd you wait for 3 hours? Well, one, my car didn't work, so I don't know what you thought I was going to do. Uber's not exactly reliable here, especially on the side of the interstate. And two, I wanted a police officer out there to get evidence that this guy was high out of his mind. Whether it was video, whether there's like a breathalyzer test they can do for that, I don't know, but I wanted that in my police report. And I knew that if I filed the police report the next day, they wouldn't allow me to include that. That's the only reason I waited so long. I wanted somebody to see what kind of state this guy was in. But that never happened. And when I told him I was going to file the next day instead and that he was free to go, he took off at like 90 miles an hour to the point where I even asked if he died on his way home, would his insurance still be responsible for covering me? Because that's how fast he was driving away 3.5 hours later after the initial accident, after he initially slammed into the back of me without even touching his brakes a single time. But I digress. The police gave me attitude. They told me that I fled the scene of an accident because I didn't continue to wait there until they showed up, which is crazy. And when I said, how can I be the one that fled the scene of an accident if I waited for over 3 hours for you guys? The guy said, well, are you still there? Fuck off, redneck piece of shit. And I can say that because I am a redneck piece of shit. You redneck piece of shit. So anyway, I talked to his insurance. He admitted to fault for the entire thing. He agreed to every detail that I told them because I told them everything. I said that he had to have been on drugs. I said he was under the influence of something. Yet I told him everything. I squealed. I sang like a canary because I knew I was on a recorded line and I wanted evidence of this. And they contacted him. He agreed with every detail that I included in my story. He said he was 100% at fault. And they told me that day that was 100% covered by his liability insurance. They said once he agreed to everything, the entire details of my story, that was the proof they needed to know that I was covered by their insurance. So, and people are like, why didn't you get your insurance involved? Because they had it. They got it. They said I was covered. Why would I call my insurance? They said I was covered. They told me they were going to get a tow truck out and take me to a mechanic of their choice. They said in order for them to pay for it, I had to go to their mechanic, which made sense. I had to be somebody in network with them. Sure, why not? For a week, they didn't send out a mechanic or a tow truck. I sat there for a week. I've never been in an accident, as I've said before, and I'll probably say 1,000 times again. So I didn't know how long that stuff was supposed to take, right? Yeah, I didn't know. So finally, after a week, I'm getting ready to call her back, and she calls me, and she admits on the line that she forgot. She literally said she forgot to process my claim and that she was going to get a tow truck out there as soon as she could. And she was so sorry. She was very apologetic. And sure enough, that day, the tow truck came out, right? So I thought, shit happens. I told the mechanic that all the issues that I thought the car had. And, I took pictures. Obviously, I took pictures at the scene. I took pictures the next morning in the sunlight. I took a bajillion pictures. But I told him, I said, there's something scraping against my tire, and I'm pretty sure my tire's damaged. It sounded flat. When I was riding home, I could hear like that rubber pulling sound, and I could feel the resistance. I said, so please check the tires and please check the back axle along with everything else, because the back of the car was just smashed. 3 weeks goes by. I don't have a car for 3 weeks. And luckily, I'm in a position where the majority of the time I can work from home. The problem is, I missed some really important things, like my best friend's wedding shower back in Arkansas that happened the week after the accident because I didn't have a vehicle. And they never offered me a rental. People ask me that all the time. They're like, they should have you in a rental. Did not know that. They did not offer me a rental. Now I know that. Oh, guys, I've learned so much over the last 85 days, let me tell you. But anyway, so finally I get my car back, and I asked the mechanic, I said, what about and it looks pristine. He did an immaculate job. He did awesome. It looked like nothing ever touched it. It was amazing. And I said, what about the back tires and the back axle? And he said, what about them? And I said, did you check them? Are they good? Are they damaged? And he goes, oh, no, they're totally fine. They're totally fine. You're good to go. And I was like, okay. But as I start to pull out of his lot, and what sucks is that I sat in my car for a little bit after I spoke to him, and they'd closed and he left. And as I pulled out of the lot, I tell there was something wrong with my car. The tire was not working. Something was wrong. He did not fix it. I don't know. I don't know if he forgot. I'm not sure. Probably forgot. So I crawled back home. I crawled my car back home, real anxious, and I let the insurance agent know. I have the screenshots. I need to take my car back to this mechanic as soon as possible. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that this weekend. And she said, okay. And I let the mechanic know too. I need to bring it back and have you look at the tires. And I crawl it back, right? Because again, did not know that I could just ask them for another tow truck. I didn't know that. But now I know I could, and trust me, I do again, but not this time. So I get back to the mechanic and I'm like, hey, I need you to check the tire and the axle, please. And he pushes down on the tire and he's like, oh shit, you're right. It doesn't look low, but it is so low. Cause it didn't. Visually, it didn't look low, but when you would push on it, it would like concave. And so then I demanded a rental. Then I called the insurance company and I said, I need a rental. I'm going to a wedding this weekend out of town and I need you to pay for a rental. And they did. They paid for a rental, and I had it for 7 days. And the mechanic was supposed to check my tires. He said he was going to take it to Firestone and find out if it was a hole that could be patched or if I would need an entirely new tire. And I said this to the man. I said, it's losing air so fast. I don't think the tire is going to be reparable. I think it's going to need 2 back tires, because if you have like a low-ish tread, like if you have regular tread on one tire and you replace it with a new tire, you can screw up your axle doing that. You need to get 2 new tires in the front or in the back at the same time. It's not a good idea to have one tire replaced if they're, older than, even I would say, a few months. If there's even a few months on those tires, you need to get new ones. People are probably going to fight me on that. I don't care. I'm tired of fighting. So anyway, 7 days later, I come back and the gentleman's shop is closed, but he left the lot open, and I was able to go get my car out of the lot, and I was able to leave my rental in his lot, which I thought was pretty cool. Enterprise was going to come pick it up from his lot. Guess they work together a lot or something. I don't know. And as I'm driving home, I can tell this man did not fix my tire. He didn't fix my tire. He didn't fix my tire. He didn't fix my tire. And I told the insurance lady, I'm trying not to say their name, I said, I gotta take my dadgum car back because I can't drive it like this. I cannot drive it like this. Each time I was headed home from that man's lot, it was dangerous. I was crawling. You could hear the rubber like me. And she said, okay, no problem. Well, first, it took like 2 days because of my schedule. His business closed at the exact same time, if not earlier, than I'm usually done working for the day. So it takes forever to get back out there because there's never a time that we correspond. So finally I go out to take my car and the tire is flat. It is flat as a pancake. It is so flat that when I'm backing it out of the spot to put it in a new spot so a tow truck can come get it, you can hear the metal scraping on the pavement. Like, that's how flat this tire is. And I told that man, I told him that tire was not going to be reparable, but because I'm a goddamn 5'3" woman, he thought he knew better than me. I don't know. Maybe he thought I wouldn't notice. Like, I don't know what these people are thinking. Anyway, I messaged her immediately and I'm like, I cannot even drive this car to his shop. I'm going to need a tow truck out here. And she said, no problem. And then for 2 days, I don't have a goddamn tow truck. So finally I reach out to her and I'm like, where's this tow truck? And she goes, oh, actually, the MR or some shit, somebody with the insurance company needs to check, to do an assessment, to come out to your house and do an assessment to make sure that the damage to the tire is actually related to the accident. And I was like, what the hell do you mean, girl? I showed you the pictures. I literally have pictures. If I think to do it, I'll put them in here. I don't know. I'm just high on life and energy. I have pictures of metal stabbing into my car from the accident. I have evidence that I reported to them that something was wrong with my tires. I told the man before I even got to his shop the first time, before he even came to tow my car, that I heard metal and plastic scraping and stabbing my tires. And I have pictures of it. I have pictures of metal and plastic scraping and stabbing my tires. And now she's telling me these tires may not have anything to do with the accident. So I told her, I said, well, what's going to happen when the assessor, without a doubt, comes to assess my vehicle and decides, based on his assessment, that the tires don't have anything to do with the accident when I've been reporting the tires since day one? And she's like, I can't make you any promises. I don't know, but he's going to contact you in the next 24 hours and come out and assess your vehicle and look at the damage. And then if he finds that the damage is related to the accident, we'll tow it to this mechanic. Nobody calls me in the next 24 hours. Nobody calls me for the next 3 days. 4 days later, 4.5 days later, the whole time I'm texting this rep, I'm calling, I'm trying to get a hold of somebody. Nobody's responding to any of my text messages. Nobody by the name that she gave me ever reached out to me to do an assessment. I find out from that insurance company that the assessor, who never came out to my car, ever, never came looked at it, nope, decided based on a couple of pictures that he claimed he saw that the damage had nothing to do with the vehicle or the accident. And I was like, girl, nobody assessed my vehicle. Nobody came out and looked at it. Nobody even called me. And they were like, well, sorry. They based on the pictures you submitted, they came to the conclusion that the tires were not related to the accident. And I said, that doesn't work for me. I said, no, that doesn't work for me. These tires have everything related to do with this accident. And your assessor will come out here and will talk to me and will look at my vehicle. He didn't even look at my vehicle before he made this assessment. Girl, no. I said, no, I need to hear, I need somebody to get a tow truck out here that you're going to pay for. And I need you to take it back to the mechanic and I need my dadgum tires fixed. And so she said, oh my gosh. And this was a substitute, by the way. The lady I've been talking to up until now did not even bother to tell me. She left and went on vacation. And there was a sub who had no back history of my case at all, who just happened to notice that I was blowing up the text thread before calling me to find out why I was blowing up the text thread. Girl, because I need a tow truck to come out here and fix my car. So then the assessor calls me, still has not assessed my vehicle, still has not assessed it. He calls me and he says, the damage is unrelated to the accident and we're not going to cover these tires. And I said, that doesn't work for me, sir. I disagree. The damage is directly related to the accident. I've been reporting it since the day of the accident and I need you to do the right thing and I need you to fix my tires. And he said, no. And I said, yes. And he said, I don't know what to tell you. And I said, let me speak to your manager. And he said, I am the manager and I'm as high up as it goes. It stops with me. And I said, really? The entire company of blank stops in Smyrna, Tennessee? Wow, you're close enough to give me a ride to work on Monday. See you then. I really did say that. Then I find out, shocker, that doesn't go as high as him. Might be my first accident, but I wasn't born fucking yesterday. So he and I got into it. He's the only one I lost my cool with. But I told him it doesn't work for me. And he said, well, the only other option I have for you is that you put in some form, some BS paperwork, and you pay for the tow and you pay for the assessment. And then if we find that the damage is related to the vehicle, then we'll cover the tow and the assessment. And I said, no. That doesn't work for me. I'm not paying for a tow and I'm not paying for an assessment for you to have already decided that the damage is unrelated. You're making me do this only to already know. You already know. I said, how can I pay for a second assessment when I didn't get a first assessment? How can that be possible? Please tell me, because I'm from Arkansas, but that doesn't mean I can't count the two, right? He got real heated, right? So he's like, well, I'm going to email you this paperwork, and that's all that we can do. So I blow up that text chain because I know they're all reading it. I've had like 4 or 5 different people respond to text messages from the same number. So I'm sure it's some text app or some desktop app with a fake phone number or some shit. Anyway, I'm blowing it up. I put exactly what he said. I put exactly what we talked about. I put exactly what I need from them. I said, I need you to tow this car and pay for it, assess this car and pay for it, and then fix my damn tires that I've been telling you about since day one, right? Day one. And I start to think, they're dying on this hill with these 2 tires because I bet it's going to be worse than that. I bet they know that. I bet they know it's going to be a whole undercarriage problem and they don't want to pay for it because, again, wasn't born yesterday. So they have the audacity to send me a how's it going poll in the email. And so I tell them exactly how it's going. And then don't hear back from anybody for a week. For a week. I still don't hear back from anybody for a whole week. And I'm losing my goddamn mind, right? I'm going nuclear in that text chat. I'm sending pictures. I'm sending evidence. Yada, yada, yada. So finally, I get a phone call from who it turns out is that man's manager, which is crazy because I thought the buck stopped with him for the entirety of the insurance company, which would have been wild. And he's like, hey, tell me about your experience. And I go off. I tell him, the first lady you put me in touch with told me about the open cases that this driver already has against him, the open claims he already has against him. And legally, I don't think she's allowed to tell me that. I think that's his personal information that his insurance company is supposed to keep private, but she told me anyway. She told me anyway that the man who hit me, who was a menace out on the goddamn road, already had insurance claims against him for hitting them. So you may want to check on that. And I told him the time and the date. I told him the time and the date to go back and listen to the recorded line. I wasn't even sure if they had a recorded line, but I just, they probably did. And so I was like, go check. I said, first she told me that. Then she admitted also on a probably recorded line that she forgot about my claim. She forgot about it. Then she told me without a doubt that I was 100% covered by his insurance. She told me that. Whether or not that's true, none of my business. She told me that. Therefore, it needs to be the case because she told me that on a recorded line. And again, I told him because I'd pulled my phone records because I knew I was going to go nuclear on these people. Then I said, your boy who called me the other day, who didn't even assess my vehicle, didn't even look at it, didn't even assess it, never even came out, told me that not only was he not going to cover the damage to the tires, but that the mechanic, oh, by the way, the mechanic was out of network. The mechanic they made me go to in order to cover the damage, right? That she told me I had to go to in order to get covered was out of network. And I said, I don't give a fuck if he's out of network. You made me go there. I would have gone to my boys if I'd known I had a choice. Turns out legally, you're supposed to have a choice. So keep that in mind. And I go off. I'm naming names, times, and dates, telling him when he can go back and look at text messages and phone calls and recordings. I go off. And then I find out he's their direct manager. Whoops, both of them, right? And they're in a lot of trouble and he's not happy. And this, by the way, has all taken months. We're talking, this happened January 11th, and I'm probably having this discussion with this man on March 1st because that's how long it took me to get somebody to do something. I was contacting them daily. I was calling them. I was texting them. I was asking for updates. I was getting the runaround daily, guys. I did not have a car to drive for 85 days. For 85 days, they would call me. When we would do the rigmarole, they would call me. They'd be like, we're not going to cover this damage. I would say, that doesn't work for me. You're going to cover it. Tell me when. They would ghost me for about a week. They would call me. They would say, we have it assessed and we're not going to cover that damage. And I said, no, you didn't. No assessor ever came out. Doesn't work for me. You're paying for the tow. You're paying for the mechanic. You're paying for the assessment and you're paying for the damn tires. We went back and forth like this for weeks, man, because they picked the wrong one. Jesus Christ. So anyway, the dude disappears again. The one who's been so helpful, right? So he agrees. He's like, I'm going to get your car towed and you don't have to pay for it. And I was like, thank you. And he goes, you can pick the mechanic. I said, thank you. And he said, and I'm going to cover the assessment. And I was like, as you should, because it's the first one, right? Ain't the first one always free? So he agrees. So we get a tow truck out here, right? And this whole time, I'm not able to record episodes because I never know when these calls are coming. I never know how long this is going to take. Like this has been taking my whole life because I can't drive. I'm having to get Ubers places. I'm having to get my groceries Instacarted. I'm having to get rides to work like a 15-year-old child from coworkers on the rare occasion that I have to go downtown. I got reprimanded. I'm not going to say by who, but I got reprimanded on a situation for the first time in my entire professional career that was directly related to the fact that I didn't have a car. And that's all I'll say because I don't want to put myself in jeopardy. But I for the first time in my entire professional career, I got reprimanded over a situation that would not have occurred if I'd had a vehicle that worked. So finally, I'm, hey, baby, I'm just recording. I'm just recording the story because I'm going to put this shit on YouTube. So finally, I'm like, I'm done with this. I'm getting a lawyer because people have ghosted me once again, right? They take my car, they tow it to the mechanic. So let me back up a little bit. They finally they paid for the tow. They towed it to my mechanic. They also agreed on a recorded line. I recorded it because Tennessee is a one-party state. You can record any phone call you want without telling anybody you're recording them. So on a recorded line, because I Uno reverse. I started recording that shit. It's like, you're going to record me? Great. I'm going to do it too. They told me they were going to pay for the tow, they were going to pay for the assessment, and I made sure to get them to agree that they were going to pay the storage fee because I knew they were going to make my car sit there. I knew them at this point. I knew they were going to make my car sit there as long as possible before getting that assessor out there. And I made them promise that they were going to pay for the storage fee or whatever you call it when you leave your car there, and they agreed. So I no longer cared about how long my car sat there. So the assessor goes out there and he says, "Oop." And I asked the guy on the recorded line, I said, "So what are we going to do when this assessor finds that the tires aren't related to the accident?" Because we know we are. We know he is. And I told him that. I was like, "You know it. I know it. We know he's going to find that the tires are unrelated to the accident. I've already been told that like 17,000 times, even though I have literal photos of metal stabbing my tires that were taken the moment of the accident. So what are we going to do?" And he said, "Well, I'm high up enough that I can make exceptions and conditions." He said, "I'm not going to make any promises. I can't tell you that that's what I'm going to do. But if he finds that the damage is unrelated to the accident, which he's gonna, because why would," I said, "why would he find himself responsible? Why would he? Doesn't make any sense. He'd be bad at his job." But he said, "But I'll make an exception." And then he did say, "I'm going to be out of the office for a while. And this is the name of the person that you need to keep an eye out for. They'll call you, blah, blah, blah." So they go out and they do the assessment. And wouldn't you goddamn know? The tires don't have anything to do with the accident. These people cannot fathom. At one point, they said they took it to a board of directors who looked at the photos of my accident and couldn't figure out how I came to the conclusion that the tires were related. They claimed so many things, but they never had anybody come out and assess the car and look at it. They didn't. So what's going on? So he tells me, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I find that the damage to the tires is unrelated to the accident. I'm so sorry." And he went on to be like, "And we looked up the VIN number of your tires and they're from 2018, right? This is a used car. They've not been on the road moving around since 2018. Don't be impressed." And he goes, "But we did find," first, "there's no hole in your tire." He said that. He said, "There's no hole and there's no nail in your tire," which is crazy because homeboy, who was his own manager, told me that the reason my tires were the way they were is because I probably picked up a nail at that mechanic, the one that was supposedly out of network. And I said, "It doesn't matter. You sent me that mechanic," right? And I told his manager the same thing. And his manager found out that I was told what mechanic to go to. And that's when I learned that it's actually my right to choose my own mechanic. So sorry if this story is all over the place. I'm just trying to get it off while it's fresh. So to summarize, I went to a mechanic that apparently was out of network that I was forced to go to in order for them to cover the damage that they didn't cover. And then they tried to blame that mechanic for a nail in my tire that did not exist, according to their own assessment. There was no hole and there was no nail in that tire that they did not pick up from the car lot that they made me go to. So he said, "But your tires are so old that they're cracked and they're losing air. That's why it's flat. Like a pancake, like a freaking pancake, right?" And I said, "Okay, I believe you that you looked up the VIN number and that these tires are from 2018. I get it. But these old ass tires worked just fine until your boy hit me. So I'm going to need you to cover it. I'm going to need you to pay for the damage." I said, "We can talk back and forth all day long about the age of the tires and the rubber and the cracks and the air coming out. But I'm going to need you to fix those tires. Because those ancient relic of a tire that belong in the museum worked just fine until 5:30 p.m. on January 11th when I got hit by your boy." And he said, okay, I'm going to take this further. I'm going to escalate this to see if I can get, he had a word for it, but basically an exception or something like that. Cause he said, I see on here that you've been dealing with this for over 80 days. And I'm wondering if they'll just clear it out and close your case and move on, just fix the damage, move on. And I said, thank you so much. And I said, you're so nice. I love working with you, but I hope I never have to talk to you ever again for the rest of my life. Any of you. I said, I hope I never have to talk to anybody from this company ever again for the rest of my life. And he laughed and I laughed. And then I lost my goddamn mind after I hung up. But anyway, so I don't hear back for another week. For a whole nother week, I'm texting, I'm calling. I added all of the progressive reps. So to this point, I've dealt with like 4 or 5 progressive people. And every single time a new progressive person calls me, they don't know what they're talking about with my case. Like even the guy who called me to tell me that he wasn't going to pay for my tires said, well, the car is drivable and it's not. That's what the whole thing is about. The whole thing is about the car not being drivable. And he still didn't even know that much. But he's the manager and it goes as high up as it's going to go when it stops with him. I contact a lawyer and I tell him, I'm like, I'm getting legal representation. I'm taking this to court. It has been 85 days. It's been 85 days. And not going to lie, in the group chat on Easter, I did send a petty message that was like, hey, I hope you're enjoying Easter with your family. I would love to enjoy Easter with my family too, but I don't have a car that works. How was it driving there? Did you drive to get there? Because I'm an ass. So I contacted a lawyer. The lawyer never actually did anything, which is fine. He didn't need to. But I told him. And I think that was enough. And also like the petty group chat to get something done. So they paid out today. They paid out today. But only because I constantly bugged them. Constantly. I constantly texted, screenshotted, called. I Googled the guy who hit me and I found his driving record on judyrecords.com. Judyrecords.com is your database for all the legal stuff you're ever going to need to know about anybody. If it's a public record, you can find it on Judy Records, whether it's a lawsuit, whether it's a divorce, whether it's a ticket, you can find it. And I found this guy and I found his driving history. And I was like, why was this guy even covered to begin with? Company. That doesn't even make any sense. I sent them his driving history. I called my insurance company and accidentally got the office of the CEO and told him about my situation. And he said he was going to look into how to help me. I told him I contacted a lawyer. I sent constant receipts. Anytime I would send a text to one person, I would send the receipts to everybody else to let them know I reached out to that person until I finally just put everybody in a group chat. I started a spreadsheet of all my expenses and I let them know any Uber that I took, any Instacart that I ordered, any time that I missed any kind of, because we were getting into lost wages territory. Truly. I just started adding it all up. And then when they offered to pay for the one tire, I said, well, that's not good enough now. Now I need both tires covered. Thank you. Right. Like I just stacked it up and I let them know every day, every single day that I did not have a car, that they were going to owe for that, they were going to owe for the tow. They were going to owe for the assessor. They were going to owe for the storage. They were going to owe for the amount of time that my car was sitting there, and they're going to owe me for tires. At no point did I relent that they were going to owe me for tires. At certain points, they had me on a recorded line and asked me if I agree with stuff. And I always said I disagreed. Even if it was just like, oh, your name is, nope, disagree. Oh, do you drive it? Nope, disagree. Well, can we agree that? No, we can't. Never agree to anything on a recorded line. I was not about to let them get audio of me agreeing to anything. No way. No way. So for 85 days, this is what I was dealing with. Recording them recording me not agreeing to anything because I didn't want any legal repercussions held against me, them repeatedly ignoring me and ghosting me only to call me and tell me that the tires weren't covered and they weren't related to the accident, that I've been reporting the tire problem ever since, right? They tried everything. And I didn't let up. I was so fucking annoying and I'm glad. But in that time, because it was impacting my ability to work, it was impacting my ability to record episodes, it was impacting my ability to literally focus on anything. Like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I was focusing on defending myself in this case. And I was trying to preemptively guess what they were going to say, preemptively guess what they were going to come at me with. It was always right, too. It was always right. Oh, yeah. I was contacting lawyers to find out which ones could help me, because it turns out a lot of lawyers don't want anything to do with your case if you weren't injured in the accident. I was looking up this guy and his driving records. I was looking up everything. I was having nightmares. I was literally having dreams about them coming to tow my car and hide it because they didn't want to pay for the damage of the tires. I swear to you. But as of today, as of 2:45 p.m. today, April the 3rd, they paid out and they're going to fix those tires. My boys, my mechanic is going to fix those tires. And they did their assessment, which obviously I disagreed with. My boys did their assessment, and luckily all of the notes matched up in terms of like there was no further damage. It wasn't a framing issue. The car wasn't totaled. Um, and so my mechanic wrote them a bill for the towing and their personal assessment. I'm making this company pay for the second assessment that I got by my company, by my mechanic. They're going to pay for the tires. They've already paid out. They got the total from my mechanic on how much it's all going to cost, and I called them to confirm to make sure I wasn't getting screwed, and they paid out. And I'm getting my car fixed. And 85 days later, I'm able to move on with my life. Like it probably doesn't sound like as much as it was, but I could not move on with my life. I couldn't record episodes because I didn't know when I could book people, because I didn't know when I should be free for a phone call, because if I missed a single phone call, I wouldn't be able to record it, right? I didn't want them to have ammo like, well, we called you and you didn't pick up. It was insanity. They would say things like, we're going to call you back, and I would not hear back from them for days. So I had to sit there waiting because I never knew if they were going to call me back an hour later or 7 days later after I'd harassed them. I had to get Ubers to places that I would normally drive to, so it took 10 times as long, right? I had to get an Uber to do my taxes the other day. Like nightmare, absolute nightmare. But they they are going to pay for the tow. They're paying for everything, and I also got a rental from them. I went nuclear on Easter and I demanded a rental, and they got me a rental. So I have a rental, and I'm going to keep it until my car is fixed, until those tires are repaired. I'm going to get some good old Goodyear tires on because that's my mechanic and they're awesome. And I'm going to get back to regularly scheduled content in my life because it has been on hold mentally, emotionally, financially, physically for 85 days. But never take no for an answer. Never agree to anything on a recorded line. Keep your receipts, screenshots, everything. If you're in a one-party consent state, make sure you can record those phone calls. Do it. Keep your timestamps. Keep your phone records. And finally, we can move on. But that's what I've been doing. So look out for new episodes coming as I am able to schedule people and interview them, and look for other content to be happening now that this is over. And I won. I won. Don't ever let people take you to the cleaners. And don't freaking drive under the influence. Anyway,